Hey guys, so today we're going to be doing a test on the MN78 and the MN82. So basically we're going to be testing out the flexibility on these trucks. Where do they max out? What is their capability? And we're going to be doing that with some wheels from other RCs. It's a pretty basic test, but it's going to give us a good idea to see what truck is a better baseline for somebody who wants to start off with one of these trucks as their entry into the RC hobby for off-road crawling. So first off, we need to get this thing started. So we're going to open the hood, a little bit different than our other truck, and we are going to put this charged battery in there. We're going to get it connected. Now we've got it connected, we are going to try to get this cable in there, get it closed. Now we're going to flip the truck over. This is your on switch. So now it's on. You can tell by the angry flashing lights. So now we're going to get off camera, get the controller, put some AA batteries in, and get that connected. So we've got the controller right here. Simply turn it on, and there we go. So you see, let's see the basic functions. So you got this little thumbstick here, which I'm going to be using since I'm one-handed. So let's take a look, closer look. You hear the servo working. So I'll tell you right now, definitely if you're going to use this truck hard, servo is definitely going to be an issue, but it works when it's new. It hasn't broken yet. So this works pretty good. So now let's get some tests going. First, we're going to try one wheel driver's side. Okay, no problem there. Did it. Now you can see the sensitivity. It's not the best. I mean, it works. I make it work, but you gotta be a little bit careful. It's definitely not as sensitive as some of the competitors out there. So let's move on to the next set. Okay, so now we're gonna try the next obstacle. Just a little bit higher. Let's see what we can do here. Get up to that first tire. Okay, some more articulation. Okay, so now you can see. So these tires are about an inch in width, around there. So I noticed something when we got up there. So you could see 1 inch wasn't too difficult. At that second step up, you could kind of see that the truck hopped a little bit, right? That is because we are actually three-wheeling. So if you look at that passenger side tire, it's off the ground. Real life, that might be a couple inches, but here, you're talking about a couple, I don't know, a quarter of an inch maybe is off the ground. So I believe we have found the limit with this truck, at least when it comes to the front suspension. Now, this is pretty good because if I'm going to be honest, if you had a real Jeep XJ, you probably would not be getting this much flex out of a simple, I'd say this truck has like a small lift, but it's pretty cool. It still looks pretty scale, I'd say. This is basically full tuck, so I'm gonna grab it so you guys can see. You can see it's just teeter-tottering back and forth on those two wheels. But that is a good amount of travel. It's pretty impressive. The main issues I've had with this truck are not really in regards to travel. The issues I have is actually with not having enough power from the motor, so power cuts off. So that's kind of where we're gonna go. So now let's do the Land Cruiser next, the Toyota truck, so we could compare that directly since the suspension is different. Before we get to that, let me just show you an angle of the rear suspension. So you can see the rear axle right here. You can clearly see that there is coilovers. So you see a spring here and a tube. Now I'll tell you one thing. These trucks do not come with oil-filled shocks, and personally, I don't think they need it. I think that they look more realistic with no oil with the original shocks. I'm sure you could change the springs out to make it stiffer, but personally, I like how they come. The only thing I really don't like is the stock wheels, but the stock wheels work. I just prefer a beefier tire like this one. The wheels on the other truck are original, so you can kind of see the difference, but it's not a huge difference. It's more of an aesthetics thing than anything else. So now we're going to move on to the next truck. Same process as before. hooked up the battery. We're gonna get that closed. Now you'll see one difference. The one thing I don't like about this truck that I've noticed as well, I guess it's not one thing, but just something I preferred on the other truck. There's a little bit more battery space in the compartment, although this works fine. But when you close this, it's more of a kind of just slap down and forget about it type thing, when the other one has retainers, which you can actually see are holding and doing their job. I think it's a lot cleaner, but you know, still for how cheap these are, you know, you can't complain much. So same process, we're gonna flip the truck over. We are going to switch it on, which is already done. And now we're gonna get the remote. So here we've got the truck. Take a listen to the servo. When we do some upgrades, we'll be able to see if they're the same servos or maybe they just sound different. Honestly, I don't know at this point, but I'm gonna enjoy it for what it is. It is a $60 truck. So let's check out the suspension travel. Okay, that was easy. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna back it up a little bit. Okay, so we automatically see there is a big difference. Okay, so I'm gonna explain why that is. So this is the same height. They're kind of the same scale. I believe they use similar frames, but this is a comparison. So you can see there's about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch, almost an inch of travel on the rear end. Now this could go either way, so I'm gonna show you. This is mainly because of the weight distribution. Most of the weight on this truck is in the middle and the front of the truck. Since there is no full body, there's just a bed. The bed is lighter. So basically, the main reason for this is right here. So if you can see it, right here is leaf springs. So you have a leaf spring suspension. Leaf spring suspension is better for carrying a load. So in this truck, if you want to do some scale work, I'd say maybe even some towing, you have a little bit more payload capacity. In the Cherokee, you're going to get a lot more squat. Now, the odd thing is, which is not realistic, if you go around the back, you also have coilovers on this truck, which I adjusted so that they're stiffer because I wanted the back to be higher. Because honestly, when it's stock, when it's very loose, you kind of, you know, sit too low in the rear end. But I like how it is right now. So I do like this. So it's a love and hate relationship. I kind of hate it because, as you can tell, this is only 2 inches of travel, and it's very, you know, incapable, I'd say. You're already losing. But at the same time, these trucks are very light, so they do pretty good for themselves. So my opinion is get some new tires that are beefier, maybe a little bit bigger, not to ruin the scale size, just like I have on the Jeep. That'll help it get a little bit more traction. And even then, you know, you might have less issues because mainly you have to consider that, you know, you only have one tire in the rear end down right now, so you're counting on that one tire. So if you have some cheap street tires or like this, an all-terrain tire, it's going to be a lot harder to get traction and to get going, especially on some of the trickier off-road routes that you might take this truck on. So we're going to try out a little bit of a more complex course to get some more suspension travel going on both axles. So I'm going to try to be as sensitive as I can. Let's see. Okay, we got one wheel up. Okay, let's see what's going on. Okay, so we got one. We're freewheeling right now. Oh, okay. So we're in between. Okay. Just don't want a high center. Well, you can definitely do it, but you can see on the rear end it's a bit light, so it's harder to get some traction. But she made it. You could also see right there, that's an inch wide tire. You could already see you do have some leaf spring contact, so that's a difference between the coilovers and leaf springs as well. Just keep that in mind because, you know, you can damage these leaf springs. They're just thin sheets of aluminum, I believe, maybe stainless steel, some type of metal, so they can definitely bend to get damaged. So you got to keep that in mind as well. But getting some bigger tires will definitely help with that. Not fix it completely. It's going to be there as long as you have them, but, you know, make the best you can with them. Let's give her another go. So I'm going to try creeping up on here. Creep up. Okay. Okay, so we can see right here. I'm about half throttle. So basically you can see all 4 tires have traction, and at half throttle, we're not getting the car going, right? But if I go past half throttle, maybe 75%, she'll jump. So that's really most likely going to be caused by a combination of a weak motor, but mostly because of a weak ESC, meaning the ESC is a little bit cheap. Maybe the truck is just a little bit too heavy, that it's not allowing for a good power transfer. And considering this is a pretty simple course, you know, this isn't even an incline or anything like that. You can only imagine when you're out on a trail in a complex situation, this truck simply is not going to move itself efficiently and safely. It's going to flip over. And obviously that's not realistic, because in real life, you know, you'd have a problem if you can only go full throttle. You'd destroy your truck. But I do know it's not going to overheat, for example, at least not right now, because I'm able to get it. Well, right there, you can see I'm able to get it over, but I'm not able to get the articulation out of the throttle that I'd like to get to be able to do these, I'd say, obstacles without risking my truck flipping over. So now that we've done some comparisons on the baseline here in the lab, we can see some pros and cons on each of these trucks. Me personally, if I'm going to be taking that Cherokee off-roading, I got to get some new electronics in there, at least a new ESC, and go from there. Other than that, it's a pretty cool looking truck. I'd like to do some scale mods, you know, maybe get a little character in there, make it look more realistic. I mean, as it is, it looks pretty real. I think you could definitely get some good looks with this one. Now, when it comes to Land Cruiser, I think that there's a lot to be done on this truck. It's really cool. The articulation kind of sucks, but then again, it's leaf spring. Can't really do much. What you can do is upgrade those tires, and we will be doing that at some point. But first, we're going to be taking both of these trucks on an off-road course of our own design. We're going to take us through some dirt, some inclines, both concrete and dirt and grass. Also take it through some sand, see how it handles all of it. We'll see if either of these trucks are up for the challenge or if one of them needs to tap out. And from there, we'll decide what type of upgrades we're going to make on which trucks and which ones are going to come first. So you guys can tag along on our budget RC builds for the MN series. Thanks for tuning in.